Pretty sure Mysterio was like knocking at the front door asking if he could join, and Doc Ock only let him in because Sinister 6 sounds way better than Sinister 5. Every great hero needs a rogues gallery of villains. Whether it be Batman or the Avengers, no hero is complete without their bad guys. Spider-Man has definitely reached a level of iconicity that comes with an entourage of great villains. And wouldn't you know it, they all got together to think of a name. One of the most famous supervillain teams, the Sinister Six, has been giving Spider-Man guff for years, and has had a rotating roster of characters to round them out. Let's take a look at the most powerful members of the Sinister Six right now.
Is that what you want?
Picture this. An evil Hawkeye knockoff, and maybe slightly derivative of a certain DC Suicide Squad member. That's basically what you get with the Spider-Man villain Boomerang. He is on the whole a very low-level Marvel villain. Essentially, he's just a normal guy with a fanny pack full of trick boomerangs. He has ones that explode, ones that are extremely sharp, and ones that electrocute their targets. Boomerang's real name is Fred Myers, a man who was once a baseball pitcher, whose accuracy is unparalleled by any other. Overall, Boomerang is a rather silly villain, who even attends Supervillains Anonymous from time to time. He did, however, have his own run, as not only a member but the leader of his own Sinister Six. Well, it was more like a Sinister 16, but he definitely stole the name. Regardless, this iteration of the team was defeated easily by Spider-Man, and Boomerang will likely go down in history as one of the silliest Spider-Man villains. I mean, seriously, of all the things to attack a superpowered teenager with. I'll take my childhood nightmares come to life for 1,000, Alex. Fritz von Meyer is also known as the villain Swarm. Von Meyer was a Nazi scientist who mutated way too many buzzing insects. Eventually, his body became made of mutated bees after they attacked and killed him. His consciousness was then spread throughout the attacking bees, allowing his mind to live on, with his body nothing but a literal swarm. Terrifying? Absolutely. This may be the last villain I would ever want to face. I don't care who you throw at me. Despite my childhood irrational fears, however, Swarm is definitely a lower level villain. His body, being composed of insects, allow him to fly as well as shapeshift. Eventually, Swarm even led an iteration of the Sinister Six, which also included members such as 8-Ball, Delilah, Killer Shrike, Melter, and Squid. Needless to say, it's not the most popular team, but honorable mentions for scaring the crap out of me. Some villains are simple, some are quite complex, some, however, are definitely somewhere in the middle. Take Gog, for example. He is a member of an alien race known as a Sill, native to the planet Broy. Born in an alternate realm during an evacuation, his ship crash-landed on Earth. Gog was then raised by the world's greatest hunter, Kraven. He was essentially raised to be a mindless hunting monster, serving as a pet of the mighty hunter. He is often easily defeated by Spider-Man, given that he is not the strongest or the quickest or the smartest, or really the anything-ist of Spider-Man's villains. Eventually, he was forced to join the third iteration of the Sinister Six by Dr. Octopus. This team was defeated rather easily, and Gog was shrunken down by Reed Richards and returned to his original realm. Adrian Toomes is the first Sinister Six member on this list who was one of the original members of the team. He was definitely an asset intellectually, but at the end of the day, it's hard to compete with a master hunter and a guy with metal octopus arms, especially when you're an old bald dude in a bird costume. The MCU gave us a seemingly much more powerful version of the Vulture, but at the time of the comics, I think the other villains just really wanted to use the name Sinister Six, so they let Toomes join them. However, as the years went on, the Vulture really improved his reputation as a master thief, and someone who rarely, if ever, beats Spider-Man, but can hold his own in a fight against the fabled Wallcrawler. Laurie Baumgartner was a thief. I can't really say master thief, given that her story basically starts in prison. Laurie was released early, however, if she agreed to participate in a series of experiments by the company Roxxon, and became the villain known as Bombshell. She was actually from the universe where Miles Morales was the main spider-themed hero, and she was transported to Earth 616 along with Miles' uncle Aaron, who formed a new Sinister Six, with villains of the main universe. This was a formidable team, but Bombshell was definitely not the most powerful player of it. She can create concussive energy blasts from her hands, and use the radiation given to her by the Roxxon experiments to fly. She's also one half of one of the most famous mother-daughter crime duos, given that she was unknowingly pregnant during the experiments as well. Who do you think of when I say an appropriately named electrical-themed Spider-Man villain? Right, of course I'm talking about the Shocker. Oh, you thought? Don't worry, we'll get there.
Out of all the people in the whole city, he saved me.
Herman Schultz is actually a brilliant inventor who relies on his electric shock gauntlets and supervillain costume to do battle with Spider-Man.
This time, it's maximum voltage at minimum ray.
He was one of the lowest tiered members of the Sinister 7 team led by Mysterio, and likely would have been the first boot had they decided to go back down to 6. The Shocker often puts up a fight against the Webhead but rarely prevails, and he even has a soft spot for Spidey, allowing him to escape on several occasions. He has a confidence issue never seen before by a man in a tin can, but without his suit, he is the opposite of a threat. Chameleon, for me, jumps very high on a list of villains I want to see make their live-action debut. Heck, for all we know, Chameleon could just be every villain we've seen so far, given his power set. Doc Ock, Electro, Vulture, they all could have just been Chameleon in a mask. Dmitry Smirdyakov is the half-brother of Kraven the Hunter, and was raised as the lesser of the two. One interesting fact about the Chameleon is that he's completely insane. He is a master impressionist and method actor, and will impersonate all manner of people in an attempt to fix their lives based on a warped heroic view of himself. He joined an iteration of the Sinister team led by Doc Ock. He has no superhuman strength, and a small amount of equipment that helps him fight, but his real power comes in his mastery of his skills. It is his ability to manipulate those around him that gives him his real power. He has successfully impersonated people in high positions of power, gaining untold wealth, prestige, and status.
Spider-Man must be quite confused right about now.
I can't wait for Thanos to come back, tear his mask off, and reveal it was the Chameleon all along. Abner Jenkins was your average, everyday, run-of-the-mill, middle-class worker, bored with his everyday life and monotonous job and seeking fame and fortune. Instead of doing the sensible thing and becoming a Twitch streamer, Jenkins turned to a life of crime and became the first person to hold the moniker of the Beetle. He is a man in a powerful armored suit, powerful enough to take on the Thing and the Human Torch. He thought this fight would make him an overnight sensation, but when you're competing with people like Doc Ock and the Green Goblin, it takes a lot more than that. Abner joined an iteration of the Sinister team led by Quentin Beck, and really should just be happy to be included. Others like Janice Lincoln would hold the Beetle moniker, and joined Sinister teams as well, but Jenkins is the OG. Aaron Davis was the uncle of Spider-Man Miles Morales, who is best known as the villain Prowler, a master fighter and thief who packs quite a punch. In one storyline, Aaron and some other characters were transported to the main Marvel 616 universe. Aaron Davis stole one of Spider-Man's most powerful suits and dubbed himself the Iron Spider of this universe. He then went a step further to form his own Sinister Six team. This team included the likes of Bombshell, Electro, and Sandman, as well as Spot and Hobgoblin. Overall, the technology of the Iron Spider suit in the hands of a master fighter and brilliant man like Aaron Davis proved to be a dangerous combination. This multi-dimensional Sinister Six team was a great match for Spider-Man, but ultimately they were defeated in their attempt to procure a SHIELD helicarrier. Spot is maybe one of the coolest Spider-Man villains you may not know about. He has the coolest powers, the coolest design, just ignore the fact that he shares a name with my sister's Pomeranian. Jonathan Owen was a brilliant man and college roommates with Quentin Beck, likely the source of negative influence that drove him to villainy. He attempted to recreate the powers of the hero Cloak, the teleporting vigilante, and was successful.
There's no need for all this. I'm not a criminal.
But as is the case with most villains, the experiment went horribly wrong, and Owen was fused with the portal, which covered his body in spots of dimensional wormholes that he can use to teleport, as well as place the wormholes in various locations. Spot joined the Sinister Six led by Aaron Davis, which was a promising team for sure, but ultimately defeated. Dr. Kirk Connors was a brilliant scientist and friend of Peter Parker, but nobody's perfect and he, accidentally turned himself into a giant lizard. This gave him superhuman strength and unparalleled regenerative abilities. He also can climb up the sides of buildings now. There have been several iterations of the lizard, including clones and duplicates of the original, but Dr. Connors has been a long-time nemesis of Peter every time he develops that scaly green skin. The lizard is one of the most recurring members of the Sinister Six teams. He's never really a leader, but is always a source of muscle that the team greatly needs. Essentially, Spider-Man will always have a soft spot when fighting the lizard, because he knows that his friend is somewhere underneath all that cold-blooded rage. When you want to add nothing but pure, unadulterated muscle to your supervillain team, there are a few characters who come instantly to mind. These are characters like the Juggernaut, Doomsday, and of course no one can forget the mighty Rhino. Is he a muscly grown man in a skin-tight Rhino suit? Maybe. However, he can barrel through most obstacles uninhibited. There was that one time the suit was made of metal, but not even Spider-Man No Way Home wants to talk about that.
We don't do that here.
Alexei Sitsevich was a member of a few Sinister Six iterations, and was never accused of being the brains of the operation. His gamma-irradiated body gave him incredible speed, strength, stamina, and durability. He's basically a one-man wrecking ball that the other members of the team just point in the right direction. Once the world's greatest hunter chose to make Spider-Man his prey, our favorite web-headed teenager knew he would be in for years of stress and torment, doing battle with Kraven the Hunter. Throughout his time as a traditional hunter, he has come across various witch doctors and herbal potions that have increased his strength and senses, making him similar in ability to some of the jungle's greatest predators. The most impressive thing about Kraven is likely his dedication. Once he chooses his prey, his entire life becomes focused on achieving his goal of hunting down that prey. Kraven the Hunter was actually one of the original members of the first incarnation of the Sinister Six, as he knew at the time that joining forces with some other thorns in Spider-Man's side would definitely ease his hunt of the amazing hero. Hobgoblin is one of those villains where the moniker is more famous than the person holding it. Several people have been the Hobgoblin, including Roderick Kingsley and Peter Parker's friend Ned Leeds. The first Hobgoblin to join the Sinister Six was Jason Masondale. Formerly a CIA agent, Jason sought to become an international mercenary, adopting the name Jack-O-Lantern. Eventually, he found out that Ned Leeds was the Hobgoblin and hired assassins to take him out. At this time, Masondale took on the Hobgoblin name, as it was likely more marketable to prospective clients. Those clients came in the form of sinister Spider-Man villains who asked Masondale to join the second iteration of the Sinister Six. Quentin Beck is another staple member of the Sinister Six. He has been around since the beginning, and been on several iterations since then, even leading a version. Known as the Master of Illusion, Mysterio is one of the biggest pains in the neck for Spider-Man. He is the best example of someone taking their day job and using that to transition to a life of crime.
But these days, you can be the smartest guy in the room, the most qualified, and no one cares.
Beck was a former VFX artist who took those skills to dupe his victims over and over again. He is a master strategist and likely contributed those abilities to each Sinister team he was a part of. Over the years, Quentin Beck has become a master of psychological manipulation, which is such an underrated power. Why fight the guy with spider powers when you can make the spider hero think he needs to fight himself? Overall, Mysterio is a manipulative villain who clearly enjoys being part of a Sinister team. The Venom symbiote and Spider-Man go hand in hand. At times, they are fighting on the same side, and at other times, Venom would rather eat Spider-Man's head. Venom actually joined the Sinister team that was led by Norman Osborn. Though being the villain that he is, he broke the rules and expanded the roster to be the Sinister 12. There have been several hosts of the Venom symbiote, such as Flash Thompson and Eddie Brock, but this version was hosted by Mac Gargan, better known as the Scorpion. He was Norman's right-hand man and muscle after the Venom symbiote had bonded to him. This version of Venom is not as strong as its usual hosts, but it's certainly up there. Spider-Man had a very difficult time dealing with Venom in this instance, and it probably didn't help that this team had double the villains he was contractually obligated to fight at one time. Flint Marko is definitely no stranger to the Sinister Six lineup, as he was one of the original six and has been on several iterations of the team since. Flint had probably just the worst Tuesday evening anyone has ever had when he fell into a super collider. You really do gotta be careful where you fall. This fused every cell in his body with the grains of sand surrounding him. He became a being made of sand capable of manipulating the molecules to shapeshift better than many other similarly powered beings. Sandman is one of the most powerful villains who has given Spider-Man a beating on several occasions. I think he's cool, but really I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough, gets everywhere. Don't you know? He's Electro, another member of the original six Sinister Six, who got together and decided they really couldn't do battle with Spider-Man without a wicked alliterative name. Electro is one of the most powerful villains Spider-Man faces regularly. Though, if we're being honest, he often looks the most silly. Max Dillon was an aspiring electrical engineer.
It's written on your badge.
I'm a nobody.
Hey, you're not a nobody. You're somebody. Like that.
Working for the electric company, who was struck by, you guessed it, electricity. Granted, it was in the form of a freak lightning storm that was definitely different from all other lightning storms, as it gave Max incredible electrical manipulation abilities, instead of, frying him to a crisp like every other lightning storm does. His superpower set is one that Spider-Man often has difficulty dealing with, and really requires Spidey to prove that he has the brains to back up his brawn. Dr. Otto Octavius is one of the most recognizable Spider-Man villains.
Dr. Octopus. But I like it. Of course you do.
You may not know that he is also most often associated with the Sinister Six. He was the original leader of the first team, having the revolutionary idea that more villains would be much more difficult for Spider-Man to handle. Fusing metal arms to himself, Doc Ock had a storied history, defeating Spider-Man on several occasions. He is one of the smartest people in the universe, and has built himself up to be one of the strongest and most dynamic fighters. He has been on several iterations of the team, and led multiple of them. Even though deep down there's a good person there, it has been lost beneath layers of anger and hatred that have built up Doc Ock into one of the greatest villains of all time. Spider-Man's most notable nemesis, the Green Goblin, had been a member and leader of Sinister Six teams throughout the years. The Joker to Spider-Man's Batman, Norman Osborn infused himself with a serum that transforms himself into the Green Goblin, a psychopathic killer with super strength and a number of genius inventions that help him wreak havoc. He is a master of emotional manipulation, and built one of the largest Sinister teams we've ever seen at 12 members. He basically built two Sinister Sixes in one. He has inspired the creation of other villains, and overall it's safe to say that as long as Spider-Man is around, there will be a goblin cackling nearby. 6 villains are for the most part more powerful than one. One of comics' most famous villainous teams has had quite the roster over the years. Which Sinister Six villains do you think are the most powerful? And which villains do you want to join the team in the future?